What's up, guys? I am Laura from Reading in Bed, and today we're going to be bitching about the Booker. It's been a couple days now since the long list was released, and many of you are really on the ball and have already put your thoughts out there. I made some notes. So far, I've watched Simon at Savage Reads, Peg, the former book prize addict who seems to be going through a relapse, Eric Carl Anderson, Steve Donahue, Britta Bowler, Kate Armstrong, and of course the definitive word on all things Man Booker, Adam at Memento Mori. Still waiting for a few of my faves to weigh in. Hopefully Jennifer at Insert Literary Pun here, and Camel, What Camel Reads, will weigh in at some point, and others that I watch. And today, this video is not going to be like a book-by-book rundown or anything like that. I'm not really that invested in the Man Booker because due to my self-imposed reading restrictions this year, I can't read the long list. There's only 3 of the 13 that I even can read. 2 that I will read for sure, and I'll get to that towards the end. But yeah, like I'm not going to be spending a ton of time, but of course, I watch and I listen and I read all the tweets and follow all the controversy. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the big controversies either, which to me are should graphic novels be included, and of course the perennial the whole like letting Americans in thing. Mostly because I don't really feel that strongly one way or the other on either of those. I mean, I see pros and cons to each. If pressed, I would probably prefer not to see graphic novels. I probably prefer not to see Americans, but it is what it is, whatever. What I do want to comment on or bitch about are some of the finer points, I guess, of what people are talking about when it comes to the Booker. So there's going to be 3 things. I'm going to chat a bit about the debut novels and the whole issue around debut novels being on the long list. I'm going to talk a bit about the bias that the judges do or don't, they definitely do, have when it comes to creating a long list. And then I'm going to talk a bit about the generational divide, if indeed there is one, because we often talk about and pay a lot of attention to the gender split. We spend a lot of time looking at the ethnicities and backgrounds of the authors, but we don't always spend as much time looking at the ages of the author, which I think has just as much impact on on writing and on perspective and viewpoints. So those are the 3 things. If you want to talk about comic books and whatever, then there's lots of other videos for that. So let's start with debut novels. So this was the thing that sort of surprised me. I hear a lot of people sort of aghast at the number of debut novels on this long list, which to me isn't that much. It's 4, I believe, out of the 13 of long lists that are debut novels. I guess it's more than last year, which depending on your definition, last year either had 2 or 3 debut novels. So I guess it's potentially twice as much. So okay, I mean that's significant. But what I'm hearing is that like by putting debut novels on the list, you're pushing out some of the more seasoned writers, the Ali Smiths and the Alan Hollinghursts and others, which I mean is a bit of a flawed argument to begin with, because you don't know for sure. I mean, you can guess, but you don't know for sure that they were submitted. There's rumors that Ali Smith may have asked to not be considered for the Man Booker. So to say that, we're missing out on Ali Smith because of these like 25-year-olds is not necessarily even true. But even aside from that, there's this whole argument that it's not fair or not right to have debut novels on a prize long list because debuts necessarily have to be flawed, or there has to be something wrong with them, or these writers aren't really on their game yet. They're making mistakes, so why are we rewarding them with these prestigious prizes? To which, I mean, like just a quick Google search gives you so many examples of where that's easily refuted by just the number of really strong, really respected first novels that became classics. Even leaving aside the authors that were sort of one and done, like, say, Confederacy of Dunces, or, well, To Kill a Mockingbird if you ignore what came after, or Wuthering Heights, or, Things Fall Apart. And then, you've got more recent novels like Everything is Illuminated or White Teeth that were you know, very strong, very respected, becoming modern classics. And then you've even got some sort of like 20th century stuff like 100 Years of Solitude or The House of the Spirits were debut novels. So I don't really, like, to me, a debut novel doesn't mean it's the first thing someone's written. I assume that most debut novelists have been writing for a while. They've even written other novels that just didn't get published. So to me, that argument is just a little bizarre. So I'm wondering if that's just me. I see nothing wrong with including debut novels. To me, 4 out of 13 debut novels is like nothing to really get excited about. And lastly, on the debut novel issue, like Lincoln in the fucking Bardo was a debut novel, if you want to get technical about it. So yeah, I mean, this whole issue is a little baffling to me. I'm just wondering if there's anyone else out there who feels that way. So that's the debut novel thing. Now, the second thing I want to comment on is the judges being biased and bringing in, you know, books that shouldn't be on there. So there's 2 examples of this. Britta commented quite brilliantly on the crime novel Snap, which features quite prominently a blurb from one of the judges. And it's like, is no one else seeing this? But I said to Britta, I think being a Canadian, that doesn't even faze me because, you know, our prize culture here in Canada is just rife with that kind of thing. Like, we have the same couple of dozen people who are writing, blurbing, reviewing, judging, and awarding and winning literary prizes. And it you know, that maybe because we're a smaller pond, right? We're a country of 35 million or whatever. So maybe you just don't see it as often with such a wide prize that's open to so many people. But yeah, to me, that was just kind of funny that Britta was so outraged, where I was like, you know, we see that all the time. But I do get her point. I do find it a little egregious myself. And then secondly, there's the issue where we have a graphic novel for the first time. We also have a graphic novelist on the jury for the first time, and like, And not only that, people aren't really pointing out that the graphic novel, Sabrina, was published by Drawn and Quarterly, which is the same publisher that published Leanne Shapton, who is the judge who has written graphic novels. So yeah, I mean, again, and Leanne Shapton is Canadian, so again, like, I'm just sort of like, yeah, that happens. But I do want to just, you know, I've seen a lot of sort of dismissive comments about Leanne Shapton. Now, I haven't read her, but when I see these comments like, oh yeah, I mean, she's just a graphic novelist, or she's just an artist, she doesn't even write her graphic novels, like, what the hell? She is also a writer. Like, what I knew her for before she was appointed a judge here was for her memoir, Swimming Studies, which is text-based as far as I know. Actually, the hold is in at the library. I just have to go get it if I want to check it out. So I know she's written books, she's edited written books, she has also done graphic novels. She's, you know, I think she worked for the New Yorker, she's worked for the National Post. She has a very impressive resume. So like, to people dismissing her, I just want to, you know, maybe rethink that. And I also saw someone refer to her as young, like in a dismissive manner in a comment too. Like, yeah, I mean, she looks a little young, but she's 45. She's 45 years old, and she's done a hell of a lot. So like, as far as her credentials to be a judge on a literary prize, I think they're pretty defensible. So let's just, you know, let's not go there. So yeah, I mean, that, to me, the whole judges being biased thing is not a big deal either, because like, judges are always biased. And, you know, it's funny how this comes up in the context of like, ooh, crime novels, ooh, graphic novels. But when, you know, a prize, or say all prizes, have been dominated by literary fiction since time immemorial, and probably had judges that all had ties to writing, criticizing, whatever, literary fiction since time immemorial, that's okay. That's not a bias. That's just merit. That's just the way things are. But as soon as something changes, like, ooh, that's a bias. So anyways, so those are the two, the debut authors thing and the judges being biased thing, which I get and I see, but to me, they don't really bother me. They're just, you know, that's the nature of the game. But lastly, I do want to talk a little bit about, as I said, the sort of generational thing that I see maybe going on with this prize, and which I think might be the underlying source of anxiety that people are feeling about the Man Booker Prize. So I did a little bit of analysis. I looked at the 13 books on the long list, and I looked up everyone's birth year, and I classified everyone into their generations and all of that. And here's how it panned out. So of the 13 books, we've got representation from 4 different generations. We've got one from the silent generation. That would be Michael and Dotji. We've got 2 baby boomers, and then we've got 5 Gen X and 5 millennial. And if you buy into the theory that there's like a little mini generation in between Gen X and millennial, which I certainly do, there's 2 people that fall into that. You can call that Xennial, you can call it Oregon Trail generation, what have you. But the important thing, I think, is that we've got a really stacked long list where we've got 10 out of the 13 are either Gen X or millennial, and 5 of them, half of those, are millennial. And again, if you want to count that little mini generation, we've got 7 that are kind of like millennial or millennial-ish, okay? So like more than half. So this is a really young, skewing long list. Now, I did not go book by book with last year's long list, nor any of the other years. I got a busy day, guys. I'm taking my kids to K-Days today, which for you Americans is like the state fair, so... but I did sort of eyeball the 2017 long list, and I only saw maybe 3 or 4, but more likely 3, I think, millennials, and not a heck of a lot of Gen Xers either. Like, it seemed more stacked on the boomer side. So yeah, there does seem to be maybe a bit of a shift. And then, of course, I also took a look at the judges for this year and how they fall out generation-wise, just to see, like, were the judges younger this year? And actually they weren't. We've got, of the 5 judges, there's 2 boomers, 3 boomers, 1 Gen X, and 1 Leo Robson. Because I don't think he's published a book, I couldn't find his birth date, but I'm just gonna go ahead and guess he's a millennial based on his profile picture. So yeah, we've got 3 boomers, a Gen Xer, and a millennial. So actually the judging panel is kind of stacked, you know, on the older side, but they've given us this long list that's pretty young. And I wonder if that's, you know, when people are bitching about debuts and they're bitching about like different forms of novels, if really what they're feeling anxious and weird about is that we've just got a really young leading long list this year, and so necessarily you're going to see things that are a little different. And just in closing, I guess, like, the youngest of the people on this long list is it is Sally Rooney, who was born in 1991. So, like, pretty soon we're gonna get a long lister who's not even a millennial, who's like a Generation Z or Z, because that generation starts in 1995. I mean, those people are 23 years old. We're gonna get one of them on a long list soon, and, you know, like, everyone brace yourselves, I guess, because who knows what their novels are going to look like, right? So that's my little bitching about the Booker session. And just to wrap up, the books I'm going to read just very quickly. Of course, I'm going to be reading Warlight. This is from our resident old dude on the long list, Michael Ondaatje. If he is to win, he will be 75 when he wins, and I don't know if that would make him the oldest, but probably put him up there. And then I don't have a copy yet, of course, because it's not published, but Essie Adugin, her book Washington Black is on the long list. It's not published till August. This is her former Giller Prize winning Half-Blood Blues. Now, this was actually shortlisted for the Man Booker Prize. We've got, you know, multiple award things going on here. So, and funny, I'm seeing her alternately held up as like a potential favorite for this year, but sometimes also like, you know, who the hell is this? Yeah, you know, shortlisted for the Man Booker. It's been a while. I think it was 2011. And then the other one I'm gonna potentially read is called In Our Mad and Furious City by Guy Garante. Sorry, my notes are not good. Which, of course, isn't published here till February, so I'll have to order it if I do, in fact, read it. But it's giving me real London Stanny vibes. Does anyone remember this book? This was from about 2006, I think. And it's written in, like, teenage boy vernacular, which I believe this book is, too, so that's why it reminded me, and just reminded me of, like, how beautiful and cool this book was. I'd love to know if any of you read this, because it's one of those books with a big twist at the end, and of course it being 2006, I had no one to talk to about it at the end. So anyways, those are my Man Booker plans. That's my Man Booker bitching. Keep the videos coming. Let's all make fun of comic books, you know, whatever. Thanks for watching.